All right, can we see that presentation? Okay, awesome. So for those who are watching the recording, welcome to Financing College 101. We're so glad that you are with us tonight, and for our families that are here live. Again, thank you all for being here to listen and learn some good information about financing college. So we'll go ahead and move forward. If I can get to, there we go. And so tonight we're going to cover college costs and affordability, the different types of financial aid that may be available for your student. We'll talk through merit-based scholarships and financial leveraging. And of course, college savings plan. Again, so glad to have Joe here with us. And then the application process, right, to access those financial aid funds. And then of course, answering any questions that you all may have. So college costs and affordability. And so some of you all may have seen this chart when we presented, goodness, it seems like a while ago, but a couple of weeks ago on our college conversations. And so when you're thinking about your student in terms of their college admissions process, right? These are the things that we're looking at. And I like to say that fit is that sweet spot, right? We want our students to think about schools that they can be admissible into, meaning they meet the academic profile that the school has, or maybe they exceed that profile. Also, that the college has the academic and social options that they desire, that they're interested in, that maybe career path that they're already thinking about. And then affordability. And I feel like and I can say us as parents, because I'm a parent of an upper school student as well, definitely thinking about affordability. And I would say for our families and even our hope as a college counseling team, we want all of those areas to be covered, right? In that sweet spot where that fit, and it covers each of these different areas. And so for tonight, we are focused on talking through affordability. All righty, and I'll just say I can't see anybody right now. And so Molly or Sarah, if I need to stop and explain something, please feel free to, chime in or come off mute and do that.
We'll do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So in terms of college costs, what we did here is just list out a few colleges and just sharing the cost of attendance for each. And you all can see that on this in front of you. Of course, we have one of our public institutions in our state here in the city, the University of Louisville. And these are costs of attendance for this current school year, for the 21-2022 school year, as listed on their website. You see Center College and their cost of attendance, one of our private colleges in the state. You have University of South Carolina, which is that listing right there, that cost of attendance is for out-of-state residents for, if one of our students was planning to attend University of South Carolina. And then you have Skidmore College in New York, a small liberal college, and you can see the cost of attendance listed there. And so it's important to remember, what does all that mean, right? When you see these figures, whether you just do a Google search, whether you're looking through a book or on the college website, what do these numbers, these amounts actually entail? And so cost of attendance refers to tuition, and I did not add fees, but pretend like fees is listed right next to tuition. So tuition and fees, room and board. For most colleges, they are requiring students to live on campus at least their first year. And along with that, requiring them to have a meal plan. So that's where board comes into play. And then books and supplies. And then also any miscellaneous expenses. So we know miscellaneous is super, right? That's the meaning of the word. And so that could cover a student fee, whether it's technology or athletic fee. And so these figures are the published costs, again, for this current school year, encompassing those things that fall under the cost of attendance. How much is it going to cost a student to attend, XYZ university? And so the cost listed on the previous slide, and as you all are doing research and looking at various colleges in terms of costs of attendance, is sticker price. A majority of students do not pay the full. You definitely want to be mindful of that as you're looking at, and your students, especially if you have underclassmen students, are starting to explore those college options, and you're starting to explore with them, that most students don't pay the full price. And we'll talk about that shortly when we talk about scholarships and other financial aid programs. And so college is an investment, right? I like to say it's an investment of time, right? It's an investment in terms of cost. And so it's important to think about and talk through with your student as a family what you can afford to invest. And one of the things that I really enjoy, I know I'm just, I guess, 2 months into the role here at Collegiate, is having the family meetings and literally sitting down at the table, whether it's in my office or Ms. Prince's office, along with Ms. Gay, talk through what does your family value, and helping to lead those conversations if necessary in terms of what you can afford to invest. It's key that we as parents, right, start to have those conversations early with our students, so they're informed, and you're informed as well as they begin their college search process. And so some resources that we definitely think will be helpful. And I am sharing this slide again at the end of the presentation. And so no, I don't know if you want to take a picture, or, for those of you who are watching the recording, you can definitely pause right here to capture these. But here's some resources for students and families to look into in terms of figuring out, okay, how much is it going to cost for my student to attend this college, whether that's in-state or whether that's out of state, a private institution, or maybe it's a public institution. And so you may be familiar. I know we have a few parents on here that have seniors, yay. And so I feel like you all have probably been on some of these websites and used these resources before. And so the net price calculator, so every single college is required to have a net price calculator on their website. And this allows you to plug in financial information from the family. Some colleges have them really catered to the specific college, where students can also plug in academic information, maybe even test scores. And then it will generate an estimate of college costs and even an estimate of aid that your student may be eligible for, whether that's need-based and or merit-based aid. So a really good tool to use if you have an underclassmen student, a freshman and sophomore and junior, as you're starting perhaps to start looking at various colleges. And so encourage you all to check that out. Some colleges do have this resource immediately on the homepage, so it's easy to find. Some you may have to dig a little bit, but I would encourage, if you don't see it on the homepage, to type it in. Every college usually has a Google search engine at the top of their website, and you can type in net price calculator and get directly to that resource. Another resource in terms of estimating financial aid is the Federal Student Aid Estimator. It used to be called FAFSA Forecaster, but there's a name change, rebranding. And so this allows you, kind of similar to the net price calculator, but it will only calculate federal aid, an estimate that the estimate, of what the student may be eligible for in terms of federal financial aid. Another resource that we recommend and that we use a lot in our office, you all may be familiar with, is Kenton Levy. They have a lot of great data on their website, and they're a consulting agency, two-person consulting agency, if I'm not mistaken. And so they actually publish every single year a spreadsheet on need-based and merit-based aid for just about all the colleges that they can get that data from in the United States. And it will list the cost of attendance for each school, and then an average amount of need-based and merit aid given to students. So you can, pick out a school and see, okay, well, how much are they awarding students, whether that's need-based or even non-need-based, or that merit financial aid. And then last on the resource list, that we have on here is called Getting the Facts. And that's on KIA's website, kia.com. And this is really taking the net price calculator, I'll say, to another level, because it allows you to search up to, I believe, 6 different colleges, and you get a spreadsheet generated of those 6 colleges side by side. So you can see an estimate of college costs on there and an estimate of how much aid that your student may be eligible for. Okay. Excuse me just a second. All right, so let's transition to the types of financial aid. And I forgot to say that this is class. This is Financing College 101. So welcome to class. Some of you all may be taking notes because we're digging a little deep. And so in terms of financial aid, we have, I like to say, 4 main categories of aid. So there's grants, there's scholarships, there's federal work study, and there's student loans or loans. And so grants usually are financial aid that does not have to be paid back. And so that from the state where the student is a resident in particular, we're in the state of Kentucky, so Kentucky has grants that students may be eligible for. Scholarships, free money based on academic or other achievement or financial need. And then federal work study, which is a part-time job where students can earn money to help pay for educational expenses. And then there are loans, which we know loans are money that's borrowed, but has to be paid back with interest. And so I'm actually going to pause right now because I wanted to give Joe an opportunity to speak. He actually, and Joe, I apologize because I know I have been talking it up. He has another presentation that I have to jump on. So Joe, I don't know if David's here because I can't see or not, but I'm gonna stop.
I don't think he's here yet.
Okay. Do you have
Johnson?
Okay. And I'm looking at my phone. I don't see that he's text. So I'll stop sharing. And then Joe, I know you have like maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 to give, but I wanted Joe to have opportunity before he has to go to another presentation to talk through college savings plan.
Yeah, so thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys tonight. Thanks, Candace. So, I am the field rep for KY Saves 529. So that is Kentucky's official education savings plan. So, obviously I'm kind of biased, but I think the best way to save for education is to use a 529 plan. 529s, they just have lots of different features and benefits that come with them that can help you save more. Most families will use a checking account or a savings account to put some money in to save for college, and you just don't get much return by saving that way. With a 529, you have investments that you can use. You have gifting options that are available. You have rewards. There's special benefits for Kentucky residents that could help you end up with more, especially perhaps a little bit more financial aid. So 529s just have a lot going for them that can help you save a little bit more. And they're basically a personal account that you own, you have complete control over. A lot of people think if they put money into a 529 and they don't use it, somehow they're going to lose that money, but that's not the case. So some other features are the tax benefits. You don't have to pay any tax on your earnings in a 529. So again, if you're not paying taxes, you get to keep more of your money. You'll end up with more for education. So I would encourage you, maybe tonight to go to our website. It's ky529.com and just take a look at it. It's never too late to start saving. I know we're talking to potential, I think upper school, that's high school ages, but it's not too late to start saving. Every single dollar saved is a dollar that you don't have to borrow. And it's very, very important. Don't want to saddle our kids with more debt than we need to. So go to KY Saves 529, take a look. I also offer, like I'm getting ready to jump off here and do a webinar about KY Save. So we take a really deep dive. I do 2 webinars a week. So I do one in the evening and one in the afternoon. So go to our website, check it out, maybe join one of our webinars and learn a little bit more about how we can help you.
Thank you, Joe. So I'm thinking everyone saw that. If you can see the chat, did put the website in the chat. So Joe, thank you so much. Again, I apologize. I told you I get excited.
No problem. I enjoyed
Yes.
it. Thanks,
Yes.
Candace. I'm going to
Thank
jump
you so
off.
much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck,
Thank you,
everybody.
Joe.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Again, like I said, I get excited. So I remembered and looked at my phone and remember that Joe needs to go ahead and get off. And so definitely encourage you to check out the website if you get a chance. And if you have specific questions about college savings plans and 529s, I mentioned my colleague, former colleague, David Longhorn. He may be able to jump on, maybe not, but definitely know that I can share their email with you all if you all want to email me. Or Ms. Prince with questions or put in the chat, we can definitely connect you with them to get those questions answered. All right, I'm gonna go back to sharing the screen. Okay, are we good to go, Molly or Sarah? You all can see that okay? You're probably nodding and I can't see you, but.
Yes, Dr. Johnson, you got it. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Good to go.
Awesome. I apologize, you all. I'm learning Canva. So let me get back to where we were. There we go. Okay. So I covered and basically said that these are, I like to call it the 4 main types of financial aid that's available for students. And so just to break it down even more, there will be a quiz later. Just kidding. But that was important for you to know the specific type of programs under each kind of overarching category of financial aid. And so through the federal government, we have 3 need-based financial aid programs. You may be familiar with the Pell Grant. I like to call it the flagship grant program. It's been around for a really long time. And a student who is eligible for this need-based grant, I believe right now the most a student can receive in this grant is about $6,000, close to $6,500. And then there's a supplemental grant. I didn't write out the full title of it, but just know that S stands for supplemental and the G is for grant. So FSELG, I guess it's grant, the way I wrote it on here, is another federal grant that where a student, if they are Pell eligible, they may also be eligible for the supplemental grant that's actually given out campus by campus. So the federal government sends the FSELG grant funds to the college and they disperse it to their students that have the most need. And then there's a Teach grant for students who are interested in going into teaching, into education. And the student has to agree to teach for the number of years that they receive the grant. So that is how that grant works. And then in the state of Kentucky, we have 2 grants that students may be eligible for. One is the College Access Program grant, which can be used at any college in the state of Kentucky. And then the Kentucky Tuition Grant can only be used at a private institution in our state. And so I'm going to talk about FAFSA because I have to, because that is the first step for applying for these programs. But just want to mention even the Kentucky Tuition Grant, a student may be eligible for this grant and not eligible for the Pell Grant because the need would be higher at a private institution. And so they still may be eligible for that Kentucky Tuition Grant. You would be surprised. And so like I said, I'll talk about FAFSA shortly. And then institutions or our colleges and universities may have a school-based grant that they give to students. It's their own funding that they give to students that have a need, a financial need. So what are the scholarships, which is my favorite word when it comes to financial aid? The scholarships available to students, you'll hear the terms merit-based. I put institutional in parentheses because you'll hear that kind of interchangeably. So that just means merit-based is based on a student's academic or even artistic or athletic achievement. And so the school is awarding them that based on that type of achievement. And so it's directly from the college or university. You also have private scholarships. It's funny, and as I would give this presentation a lot in my last job. Students would say, yeah, I heard I could get a scholarship for being left-handed, or, so on and so forth. So there are some, I would say, kind of obscure scholarships out there, but there's also scholarships from businesses in our area, nonprofit organizations. I'll shout out the Community Foundation of Louisville, and they do have, I want to say, about 50 to 55 different scholarships that are from families that have giving, a scholarship in memory or in honor of someone, or it's a business that's housing their scholarship through the Community Foundation of Louisville. So just an example of private scholarships that may be available for students, or they may be eligible for. Another scholarship available to students who are residents of Kentucky and they're attending a college in Kentucky is the Key Scholarship. And based on the student's achievement as a high school student, and also their their achievement in terms of their GPA, and also their highest ACT score they earn before they graduate. So that's our state-based, merit-based scholarship. And then there is a Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship that is administered through KIA. And that's for students who want to go into it's like 5 different kind of high need areas in terms of where we need more employees. And so that scholarship is for students who will be earning a diploma, a certificate, associate degree at one of the colleges in our state of Kentucky. So want to share that information. And then there are loans, right? So we talked about grants, we talked about scholarships. I mentioned work study, and let me share just a little bit about that before I go into the loans. Work study is usually a part-time job on campus. Some colleges offer these opportunities even off campus if they've coordinated with a business organization in that college community or in that town. And so students are earning money and can use that money towards paying for their education. And then there are loans that are available that not only students can borrow, but also parents can borrow. So the first 3 on this list are federal loans. So the federal government is the lender. Direct subsidized loan. So the direct subsidized loan is a loan that a student can borrow. So meaning it's in the student's name. It's not in the parent's name. It is in the student's name. And subsidized means that the government is paying interest on this loan while the student is in school, and then during the 6-month grace period after they graduate before they have to start repayment. With the unsubsidized loan, that interest starts accruing as soon as that student takes out that loan, and the student is responsible for the interest that is accruing on that loan. Okay, so the direct subsidized loan is a need-based loan. The unsubsidized is not based on need at all. And then there's direct plus loan. I like to say P for parent. So this is a loan that a parent can borrow if there is a need. And again, this is also through the federal government. So the first 3, direct, is a federal government issued loan. And then there are private loans through private lenders. I think we all may be familiar with Sallie Mae. And then also state agencies offer or may provide a private loan product through our state of Kentucky, and through KIA, a private loan product called Advantage Education Loan. Or the college or university may have a loan program that they offer to students. So that is another form of financial aid. And so just breaking down the different types of loans available for students. And we will talk about the application process shortly. And so in terms of merit-based scholarships, or again, that word institutional, so these are scholarships that are given to students based on their academic, their athletic, or even their artistic achievement. So as your students are looking at their college websites, I encourage students, and we even do some of this together, type in scholarships. And most colleges have done a really, really, really good job of sharing, each of their merit-based scholarships, what those requirements are, if there's a separate application, if it's combined with the admissions application, and how much the award is for the merit-based scholarships. So again, those are scholarships given by the college or university to students based on their academic, athletic, or artistic achievement. So earlier we talked about, or we've been talked about affordability, right? And really talking with your student about what you can afford to invest in terms of their college education. And so in terms of merit-based scholarships, whether your student's a senior, whether they're a sophomore, freshman, or junior, we just want to share information that's going to be empowering to you as you start to do this research and look at various colleges. So you may hear about financial leveraging. And so this is the strategic use of institutional funds to help impact enrollment. And you may hear the term yield. So basically, how many students are going to actually enroll at that college campus that fall or even that spring semester, and to help manage net tuition revenue. And so financial leveraging is used to help campuses enroll students, also to control discounting and financial aid, right? And financial aid costs, and help them to achieve the revenue that they need. And so as your students are looking at merit-based scholarships, just keep that in mind. Colleges have goals that they have too, whether that's diversity goals, whether it's for athletics, whether it's for, their bond rating, whether it's for certain colleges and academic programs. And so they will use the merit-based scholarships to help enroll students and achieve, again, the revenue that they need. So that's what we mean when we say financial leveraging. And so Joe talked about saving for college and the college savings plan, particularly the 529 through the state of Kentucky. And so I will keep moving forward instead of back. Give me just a moment for that. And so let's talk through the application process. So we've talked about the types of financial aid that your student may be eligible for and what's available for students. And so let's talk about how do they access the financial aid. And so for our merit-based aid and private scholarships, and I kind of got ahead of myself and mentioned this, but with a lot of colleges, and I'm sure Molly and Sarah would agree, that I've noticed a great trend, which I think is 2 thumbs up, is that a lot of times the admissions application also serves as the merit-based aid application, which I know for our students and a lot of students we're working with now, they're breathing a sigh of relief because it's application that the student has to complete, and they're automatically considered for merit-based aid. Molly or Sarah, did I hear you come off mute? Did you all want to add?
No, I just said I think students really appreciate that, and it does sometimes mean they have to apply by the whatever the earlier deadline is. Not that they have to apply early decision, but early action to be considered for those scholarships. They can't wait till the regular decision deadline sometimes.
Yes, deadlines are, I like to say, Molly has heard me say that, and Sarah too, we want them to beat the deadline and not meet the deadline. So parents, you are more than welcome to borrow that. As you're talking to your students, they're definitely hearing it from us. And then, okay. I heard someone else talking, so I didn't know if anybody else wanted to share. Okay, you're probably smiling and nodding, so I'm gonna keep going. And then some merit-based scholarships have a separate application. Some will, what I've seen is the students will apply and then they will receive more information about their specific merit-based scholarship application and have to submit, recommendation letter, write an essay. A lot of our students are working, or a lot of our seniors are working on that now, of course, for even some of the merit-based scholarships. And then private scholarships from a business, from a community organization, from a national corporation, they're going to have separate scholarship applications. They may have their own portal that students will submit their documents for that application. I think a lot of organizations are putting their things online, so or students will submit, a Google form or something like that directly to that private organization for their scholarship. And so let's talk FAFSA. So for my senior parents, you probably know, or if you have a student that is in college right now, or you remember doing the FAFSA for yourself, or maybe for a student that has already graduated from college, but the free application for federal student aid is out. It came out, I think it was on a Friday. I'm looking at my calendar. Yes, October 1st was on a Friday. And so that is, I mentioned earlier, like the first step in applying for student aid for a lot of our families, for a lot of families. And so if a student is applying and for need-based financial aid, federal loans, and even some institutional aid, they are encouraged to the FAFSA form. And I definitely want to highlight and put my cursor there, some institutional aid. And so as students are, or whether they're seniors now, they will be seniors, and starting to look at various colleges and their merit-based scholarships or other type of aid, institutional aid, colleges will list on their website, that they also require the FAFSA even for some of that institutional aid. So even if okay, my student may not qualify for need, they still may be required to do the FAFSA again for some of that merit-based institutional aid. So I already mentioned check mark number 2, that the form becomes available every October 1st. And so students will, or families will complete it during the student's senior year. I should have put of high school. And then in the application, students are going to add the colleges that they are applying to. And that's how they're going to receive, that's how the colleges are going to receive the information from the FAFSA, is that the student is choosing the college from the list, and they're going to receive their FAFSA information to put together their award package, and I'll talk about that shortly. And then the last check mark on here is that the FAFSA is to be renewed every year the student's in college. If the student's applying for need-based financial aid, if they're applying for federal loans, and again, some institutional aid, they are required to submit that form every year. And so the good thing, is that a lot of the information is saved in the FAFSA. So hopefully it's not too much of a hassle. I'm being intentional about my wording for families to complete this again, for the years that their student is in college. So how is the amount of aid determined? And so colleges look at the cost of attendance, which varies, right? We remember that slide early on where we showed the different costs of attendances at various schools. And then the expected family contribution. This is determined from the FAFSA, and I'll talk specifically about what that means. So the EFC, because we love acronyms, right, is subtracted from the COA, cost of attendance, to determine the student's financial need. And so ultimately, how much need-based aid the student can receive. And then for non-need-based aid, the school, the college or university will take that cost of attendance and subtract any financial aid a student has already been awarded to determine their non-need-based aid. So for that expected family contribution, and actually, if it's not next school year, it's because my mind can't even think that far ahead, the school year after next school year, federal student aid is updating the language for expected family contribution, and you're going to hear it called Student Aid Index. So I think this is probably going to impact our current sophomores and then our freshman students and so on and so forth. And so for right now, when you go to FAFSA, it still says expected family contribution, but it is an index number that, is used to determine how much financial aid a student will receive. And so it's calculated according to a formula established by law. And the information that's reported on the FAFSA, and here are some of the things that are reported on the FAFSA. For those who are veterans at filling this out, you already know, right? So tax and untaxed income, Assets may be asked to be reported. Any benefits that the student or family may receive in terms of federal government benefits. Family size is taken into account in terms of this expected family contribution index, and also number in college. And those are some of the things that are considered in the expected family contribution formula that's calculated. And so I've talked about the FAFSA. Like I said, it's already out right now. So it's the 2022-2023 school year FAFSA, and comes out every October. And so some other financial aid forms that students may be required to submit, and we've really seen these at some of our private institutions, more selective schools, is that families may be asked to complete what's called profile. And this is through the College Board. And so this actually allows a family to share more detailed and defined information about their financial situation. So in addition to the FAFSA, a school may require the CSS profile, and this information will be on their website. And then schools may have their own version of the CSS profile. So, it may be a school specific form that the student has to complete that provides more detailed information aside from what is on the FAFSA form. So just keep that in mind, that there may be some other forms that have to be submitted to the financial aid office at your student's college or colleges. So what happens next? So if you have a freshman, a sophomore, or a junior student, remember FAFSA comes senior year, okay? But I think it's good to talk about, okay, after you do the FAFSA, what happens next? So for my senior families, you're right here, in this, if you and your student did submit a FAFSA. So once the FAFSA is submitted, it actually goes to a couple of places. It goes to a processing center. It also goes to the Social Security Administration to double check that identifier. And then of course to the colleges that the student has listed on their FAFSA. Once the FAFSA has been processed through those, particularly the processing center and the Social Security Administration, the student and parent will receive an email back. Usually this takes about 3 to 5 business days, sharing that the FAFSA has been processed. And so the student will receive a link to go back to the FAFSA and view what's called their student aid report. And that's called a SAR. And I was intentional on sharing that because I've seen some private scholarship organizations ask for a copy of the student aid report. So that's where that would come from. Some of the private organizations or businesses may want to view, does the student have a financial need? Are they receiving federal funds before they award their private scholarship? So just wanted to plug that. So again, the student receives an email with a link to view their student aid report. It's also important to look at that student aid report if there's any corrections that need to be made. Perhaps the student forgot by accident, or as a parent, if you're helping them fill it out, maybe you forgot to add a school. Or right now, the FAFSA allows for up to 10 colleges to be reported on the FAFSA. So if the student has more than 10 colleges that they are applying to, they can only list 10 at a time. Once the FAFSA is processed, once they get that email, right, with that student aid report, they can then log back in and they would replace the additional colleges with the ones that are already on the form. The colleges, because they've already received it electronically, so it doesn't mess anything up. The student would just need to remove how many ever they need to remove to add the additional colleges that they want to send their FAFSA to. So there is a way to add additional colleges, and that's the way. And so after the FAFSA has been processed, if a student does their FAFSA, let's say they did it on October 1st, they probably got an email, at least by the 6th or 7th of October saying that their FAFSA was processed. And hopefully they have finished applying to the colleges or in the process of finishing that up. They're going to receive financial aid awards. Usually that comes in the spring semester. There are some colleges that may send, I like to call it like a rolling financial aid award, maybe even as early as December. Molly or Sarah, I don't know if you all have seen any in December, from different colleges. I know last year when I was working with students through KIA, some of our colleges were sending those awards even in December to give. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. To give students and families, right, that information that we want to hear, how much aid have they been awarded? And if students are applying to more than one colleges, right, they are receiving different award packages. And we really want to encourage you as a family to review those packages, see what's been awarded, and really go back to, what we talked about earlier, affordability. What can we as a family afford to invest? What do we value? Is the school meeting that admissibility and also the academic and social option need that my student has? And so again, those usually come in the spring semester. And I listed compare awards because if your students apply to more than one college and they've been admitted to more than one college, then they're going to receive more than one financial aid award. And then, excuse me, I'm gonna grab my tissue. I'm sorry, you guys. Decision day. Yay, I'm doing spirit fingers. And so decision day is a day that colleges want students to go ahead and make that decision. They'll be required to submit an enrollment deposit, perhaps even their housing deposit. And so I would imagine a lot of students may make their decision before May 1st, but May 1st is that cutoff, right? That the colleges need to know, are the students being, are they accepting the package? Are they enrolling, sorry, you all, enrolling at that college or university? So that's the process. Just pausing to let it sink in. I can't see y'all's faces, but hopefully it's all good. And so we're near the end of the presentation. I mentioned that I would share the resources again. I know we covered, I feel like a lot of ground, but hopefully it was very informative for you. And so for those who may have jumped on after we shared this earlier, these are some good resources in terms of looking at college costs, estimating how much financial aid your student may be eligible for, whether that's need-based aid or even merit-based aid. So I want to share this listing again. And so Molly or Sarah, are there any other resources that we can shout out that maybe we didn't add to this?
Candace, I was thinking about some of the scholarship warehouses, clearinghouses that we've looked at and talked about, and you know those so well, and all of them can be overwhelming. Could you talk about those scholarship clearinghouses a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mentioned kind of one of my faves. I don't think I said it was a fave, but here locally is the Community Foundation of Louisville. If you have a senior, their application, and actually it's pretty much stayed the same for the past few years, their application always becomes available in December with deadlines in March. So they really give students, I think, a good amount of time to get those applications in. Some of the scholarships through the Community Foundation are for specific colleges in our state, but a lot of them are open to any college across the United States. And so definitely encourage our students to check out that, particularly because it's local. So you don't have as many students applying if you were applying to perhaps one of the kind of scholarship clearinghouses, like scholarships.com is one that we're familiar with and that we share with students. And so it's a clearinghouse, it's a hub, it's a lot of different scholarships. On scholarships.com, students can make an account and actually build a profile, and they will be emailed. They have a dashboard where they will be sent scholarships based on their profile. They listed maybe a religious affiliation or ethnicity, diversity. They're going to receive scholarships based on that profile information whether it's a certain major that they're interested in studying, or maybe it's a club or organization that they've been involved in, whether at collegiate or in the community, they're going to receive scholarships from across the United States from various organizations to that account or to their email. So it can be, a bit overwhelming, but we have some other scholarship databases or databases that we can share with families as well. We have a document that we've been kind of updating with some of that information. Another one I'll shout out is called Scholly, and that's SCHOLLY. And Molly or Sarah, if you all don't mind putting that in the chat, that would be awesome. Or one of the parents, if you can get to the chat. And so that is actually an app that students can download. And I like that because it's user-friendly. There is a subscription fee for it. But I've worked with students in the past that really had great success in being awarded scholarships through the app. Again, that's Scholly, SCHOLLY. And students will build a profile. They can actually apply for the scholarships on their phone, which I think our students are filling out a lot of things on their phone these days, but a really neat website that houses a lot of different scholarships too. How's that sound, Molly?
Dr. Johnson, the only thing that I would add, if you don't mind, is don't forget the financial aid offices at the colleges. They are customer service driven. That's their job, is to work with families and to answer questions about financial aid. And they will obviously give you specific information about the cost that you would anticipate your child incurring to attend their school, but they're also just great resources for just general questions. So don't be afraid to kind of make a friend along the way and have that person saved in your phone and give them a call, because they really want to help educate families.
I love that. The last slide just says thank you, but I want to come back and stop sharing the screen so I can see. Okay. See a few faces. Sarah, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You all probably saw my thumbs up for that one. I agree. I have worked with a lot of families in terms of financial aid, and I've always had that conversation that says, don't be afraid to reach out. And then I've actually walked them through reaching out and have heard back that, they answered my question. I had questions about how they process and do they even have any more aid that my student could be eligible for. I know I've asked before, but I'm asking again and have found great success. Even in the springtime, especially after you receive those financial aid awards, myself, Ms. Gaham, Ms. Prince can definitely sit down with you and go through those. But there may be some additional conversations that need to happen with the financial aid office, and that is what they are there for. As Sarah mentioned, as you have questions about the package your student may be receiving from that college. So yes, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. And some of the colleges, especially with a lot of things being virtual, not only do they have like the admissions virtual presentations, but a lot of the financial aid offices were offering a financing college 101, night to really talk through their processes, their deadlines. And like Sarah said, I can't champion that enough, to find a friend in the financial aid office that you can email, that you can reach out to and get those questions answered. Because this can be confusing with the different terms and all that. So they are definitely there to help break it down.
Candace, we have a question in the chat asking, for scholarships, is it a smarter strategy to take the most AP classes possible, or to take mid-level classes and get a higher grade in them perhaps? If it's all right, I can jump on that, just because I feel like in the last couple of weeks, talking to even my junior advisees about their classes next year, that's come up a lot. And unfortunately, the answer is yes, do both. If possible, take the most rigorous curriculum and get the highest grades possible. But because that's not always going to be the outcome for every student, I think it's helpful to know that colleges really do look and weigh both, that they want to see what was the rigor of your curriculum, how much did you choose to challenge yourself, and how well did you do in those classes? I would, and Sarah and Candace both help me with this as well, but I think when I'm advising students, my first question is, do you love this subject? Because if you love this subject, you should challenge yourself, and my guess is that will go well. If you are taking this class because it's going to look good, it will, but you don't want to have a class that maybe the level of rigor looks good and the outcome in that class is not as good. So I wish I could say that there was an, oh, always do this or always do that answer, but I think it's important to know that colleges really value both. And it kind of need to judge it class by class and student by student of how is the student's experience going to in this class going to turn out? Not that we all have a crystal ball, but we can make our best guess. Sarah, or Candace, what would you all add to that?
Nothing. That was perfect. That was everything.
Thank you, Molly, so much. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all being here. And we have 4 more minutes until 7:30. I'm just looking at the time. And so do we have any other questions or comments?
I have a question. We just came back from visiting Rhodes College, which was amazing. And they talked a little bit in their info session there about the scholarships that they offer. And they said that, they have these different scholarships that are grossly underutilized, which I had no idea. And for example, they have this arts scholarship that they were like, it's for anybody. It's if you want to take a music lesson or you want to continue playing your instrument or it's whatever. And so you had said in the beginning that you talk a little bit with the kids as they're applying, but is that part of the process that you all help them identify some of those scholarships, or is that really something that we should be doing much more research on our own?
I would say it's both. Almost what Molly said, it's both and because just that golden nugget right there that you shared, we're going to share with other students that may be considering Rhodes or other colleges. And I think it goes back to what Sarah talked about, having that conversation with someone in the financial aid office, and not just the financial aid office, but the admissions office as well. Some colleges have scholarships that's directly through the admissions office, and then there are some through the financial aid office. And so as you learn, and I'm talking to everybody, so you can see in my eyes, I'm talking to everybody, as you all learn about different scholarships, please feel free to share that with us. And then we do that as well. I mentioned sitting down with a student probably about 2 weeks ago, and we pulled up the college website and just combed through the scholarships that they offer, on their website. They also had departmental scholarships in art. They had a business scholarship. The Honors College had a scholarship program. So a lot of information, but it's worth, right, just scrolling through, looking to see what those requirements are and what the application process is. So I would say it's both, just so we can all cover our bases so we can work together on that. Sarah, did you want to add?
The only thing I would say is for you junior parents, I think this is one reason why kind of the earlier you can have these conversations and start, it's been so hard during COVID to really build a list. And so I know that for a lot of students, like, we're still learning so much about schools, and we're maybe only able to visit schools this year because we couldn't do it last year. So, Emma, I'm thinking about you and Olivia. And I think that, yes, that is true. And I do think that kind of the earlier that we can build a list and start to have some schools in focus, or at least kind of a general focus for our search, the more that we're able to dive deep and the earlier we are to be able to understand what are the variety of opportunities that are available to that student there. And that's where the scholarships pop up. So, we obviously do that as much as we can. I'm thinking about a conversation I had today with a student who was like, I'm just going to add this school onto my list right now, and it's like, okay, we can do that. And we're like, we're just now starting to dig deep and kind of understand what are all of the options and opportunities there, right? And so that just the more runway that we can get, I think the better. We do have another question. I'll go ahead and read this. Can you share some insight for what happens after a kiddo goes to college? You mentioned that the FAFSA gets resubmitted every year, but do awards granted freshman year tend to stay constant for all 4 years?
I'll jump in, and then Molly or Sarah, feel free to add. And Nora, thank you so much for sending that question so we can answer that. That's a great, great question. I'll say for the need-based aid, so if a student is eligible for need-based aid, that need-based is going to be based on the financial situation of the family. So if that pretty much stays consistent, through the 4 years, then yes, that student may still be eligible for some Pell Grant money. If they are staying in the state of Kentucky and are getting the CAP or Kentucky tuition grant, that's going to stay constant. I would say with the merit-based aid, with most of the merit-based aid programs, and Sarah and Molly, feel free to jump in with this, is that there are going to be requirements for that student to renew that scholarship every year. I'll talk about me. I was blessed to get a merit-based scholarship when I was in school a long time ago, not that long ago, but a long time ago. And I had to keep a certain grade point average. It was well above a 3.0 to be awarded that scholarship again the following year. So I didn't have to apply a separate scholarship application. The financial aid office was just double checking those grades each year to ensure that I met that requirement to be awarded each year. So that's what I have found even now for those merit-based scholarships.
One thing I'd add that I think is interesting about FAFSA is when you fill out FAFSA in 2021, you're using taxes from 2020 for your child to go to school in 2022. So there's really almost a 2-year lag between the financial situation that they're looking at and the award your child receives. I'm not sure we can necessarily control that lag, but it's good to know that if a situation happens right now, that's not going to change your financial aid package right now, but it might a year down the road.
And the only other thing I would encourage you all to ask too, do the scholarships account for an increase in the cost of attendance? Because not only do you want to look, and the details will be there, it may say a 1-year stipend or, just the freshman year stipend. And that's really important information because that will not renew. And sometimes they do that. It's almost like a bonus when you get a new job. It's like, hey, sign up and you'll get $1,000 bonus, but then it's gone. So those do exist. And we want to factor that into the 4-year cost of attendance. But I do think that, schools on average are increasing their cost of attendance anywhere from like 3 to 5% a year. And sometimes the scholarship packages will stay stagnant. And so that may end up resulting in you all owing more money, right? And so I think it's really important to ask, is this a 4-year renewable scholarship? And does this also increase with the potential increase in cost of attendance? And they will answer that. Okay, we got another question here, and this one, and we've got Ben's hand up too. I'm going to read this on the chat, and then Ben, we will get to you. Does the size of the merit-based scholarship vary based on early decision, early action, or regular decision? Yes.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
I was so glad that Candace really talked about colleges leveraging financial aid in order to increase their yield. And definitely merit-based scholarships are part of that, that if a student applies early decision, that means that student is binding themselves to go, that they are promising that, yes, if I am admitted, I will go. And the student signs that document, the family signs that document, we as counselors sign that document. So the college knows if a student is accepted early decision, they will come. And therefore, they don't necessarily need to offer them any merit-based scholarship in order to woo them. It doesn't mean they won't still offer some merit-based scholarship, but probably the size that you asked about, Kip, might be less because they know they have that student guaranteed to come, versus a student who applies early decision or early action. When they get a yes from that college, they can say, great, I'll come, or they can say, thanks, but no thanks. And so the colleges often will reserve more of that merit aid based scholarships, so not need-based, but merit aid-based for their regular decision or early action students, so that they can perhaps woo the students they might not get otherwise. Sarah, Candace, would you add anything to that?
Nope. Yeah, and it really does depend upon the school. So please be assured that need-based aid should not be impacted by the way that you're applying. So we don't want people to avoid early decision just because they have need. But I do think that when they know they've got you, like Molly said, they're less inclined to try to leverage you with additional merit aid. Okay, Ben's iPad. Is that Mr. Abbott?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. This is actually kind of one of more family shared iPads, so we got to rename
Yeah.
it. But more of a question about something that I've heard about. How realistic is it? Is it possible, this whole common market, if you're applying to large or your public southern schools in our area, South Carolinas, the Floridas, the Georgias, whatnot, is the common market? Can you give me a 1-minute dissertation on, is it possible to link in with this common market and get you in-state residency for applying, from what I've read about it? So if you could just kind of give me an overview in a minute.
Yeah, and I can talk through that. And of course, as we've all been doing, Sarah and Molly, jump in where I may have need to fill in some holes. But yes, so excuse me, academic common market is a real thing. And so how it works is that if a student is majoring in a program that's not offered at any state or any college in Kentucky, then there are schools, and most of them are public institutions, in schools in Tennessee, I know in South Carolina, in Georgia, I believe. There's even one school in Louisiana. Florida's not on the list. I know I've had students ask that. I'm like, no, Florida's not a part of the academic common market. But yes, they offer I've seen some schools because okay, I get excited. You mentioned dissertation, so let me bring it in. But I've been on the academic common market website, and then I'll go to the school's website. I was actually looking at this information about 2 weeks ago. And so some schools will call it a tuition discount. And so, definitely want to follow up with each individual school in that regard. But most, for instance, I think it's at the University of Tennessee, it's maybe South Carolina, I think, Integrated Information Technology, I believe is the name of the program. And a student attending there, because we don't have that program here in Kentucky, will be charged in-state tuition and may be able to use their KEYS award as well, which is helpful at that institution. And so I will put in the chat the website information, and there is a coordinator for each school, and you can see. Thank you, Molly. Thank you. And there's a coordinator for each school that you can connect with and get more details, because there is a separate application process for the student to complete. And then also the contact at KEYA, which ensures the student will receive their KEYS money to that university.
So it's definitely real money. I mean, you will get in-state tuition from the University of Kentucky, Louisville, whatnot, when you're going to one of these big public institutions in the South. It's a very big cost savings. If you don't even want to have a major in that at this young age, but if you're a liberal art, if you're really specific, your architecture, your economics, I guess you have to go into your. But if you're a general, you're just like, I just want a Bachelor of Arts. I want a Bachelor of Science.
The website I linked there, you can go on and put in your states, obviously Kentucky, and then you can put the states that you're interested in, or you can just say all states and the degree you want. So they also have this for graduate programs. And it will tell you which majors are available for the academic common market at which schools. So I had a student who was interested in real estate, and real estate is available at University of Alabama, because apparently Kentucky at that point in time didn't have a major in real estate. So they do tend to be pretty specific majors. So you're right that, if a student said, I'm not sure yet, I want to go and explore for a while, that's not going to work out.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it
You're welcome.
will usually cancel other scholarships that you're getting. So just a heads up too. And just because if it's more than what you're currently getting for a scholarship, it may replace like an institutional scholarship that you're getting. So it's not usually an add-on. It's not
Okay.
like, it's not an additional scholarship. It's a
Right.
replacement scholarship.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I just want to clarify in terms of the in-state tuition, it would be in-state for that particular college, whether that was South Carolina, whether that was University of Alabama.
Okay.
Yep, they're in-state cost.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, do we have any more questions?
We do have a couple more in the chat here. Let's see, do you keep a list on how colleges give merit aid? For instance, College of Charleston told us that they give no scholarships based on ACT and they don't consider strength of school. UT Knoxville, on the other hand, publishes their merit aid based on GPA and ACT scores and reworks the GPA to add points for honors and AP. This type of info is super helpful to decide which colleges are realistic for applications. And I would say that that's something that we, there's kind of like the institutional knowledge that we have that we try to kind of pass along. And I think we're also trying to kind of build that resource as we go so that it's a little bit more of an accessible information for our families. I will say that one thing that is tricky is that it does change fairly frequently, so it's like, it's not something that we can kind of publish and then it's all the same the next year. And so it's something where every year we are kind of updating our knowledge of how is this school treating need-based aid, merit-based aid, what are the scholarships that are offered, what are the criteria for them? And obviously there's a lot of consistency, but there's also going to be some fluctuation depending upon kind of what the institutional goals and priorities are, what the size of their budgets are, what their particular focus is that particular year. And so know that that's something that we're always trying to kind of keep up with on our side too. But yes, it's a lot to track. So Molly or Candace, any other thoughts on that?
I'm just thinking that Candace did share that Kent and Levy spreadsheets, and they love data more than anybody I know. And they go through all of the data from the previous year, and usually in July or early August, publish a variety of spreadsheets. But one, as Candace was saying, compares need-based aid and merit-based aid, and specifically merit-based aid for students who didn't qualify for need-based aid. For almost every school, there are a number of schools who they either didn't supply the data or couldn't access the data, but for almost every school it's there. And just as Sarah was saying, that changes every year. So I'm always so happy that they update those spreadsheets every year.
Thank you, Molly, so much. You are so welcome, Ms. Jones. Well, thank you all so much for hanging in, and thank you for those who are watching the recording. We appreciate you all. We love your students. We really, really do, and are so grateful to be able to support them through this process. And so again, thank you all. And we will share the recording in the email, and then I will share the information of my colleagues, particularly Joe from our Savings Plan Trust, if you all have questions about that. So I think that's all. Sarah, Molly, is there anything else kind of closing remarks that we need to share?
Thank you so much for hosting this.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. So
way to go, parents. You guys are awesome. Thanks for dealing with this side of it. Your kids may not say thank you enough, but they feel it. I know that they do.
yes. Well, thank you all, and you all have a great, great night.
Thank you.
Bye.